They say your life flashes before your eyes when you die. But that wasn't what happened to me. Instead, I saw something else. Something chilling. Something I will never forget. A pair of eyes watching me from the darkness. Not human, not angelic. Something in between. And then, just before everything went black, a whisper. A voice that sent shivers down my soul. Do you truly understand what you've done? I didn't. Not then. But I was about to, before I tell you what happened after that. Before I reveal what Jesus himself showed me about the souls of animals, I need you to understand who I was before death cracked open my reality. My name is David Carter. I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina, in a home that revolved around faith. My parents were devoted Christians, the kind who never missed a Sunday service. Every evening, our family gathered around the dinner table, and my father would lead us in prayer. Scripture wasn't just something we read. It was the foundation of our lives. We didn't question things. We just accepted them. And one of those things was this: animals don't have souls. Pets, they were just temporary companions in a temporary world. At least, that's what I believed. I was the kind of man who kept his faith in a box, neat and controlled. I knew the words to every hymn, could recite scripture without hesitation, and never doubted that heaven was real. But there were things I didn't think about, things I had never been taught to consider. And then, one ordinary day, everything changed. It was a Wednesday evening, one of those days where nothing seemed out of place. I left work late, too tired to cook, so I stopped by a diner just outside Charlotte city limits. I ordered the usual, a burger and fries, ate in silence, scrolling through my phone as I chewed. I remember thinking about the weekend, about what I had planned. Nothing exciting, just errands, some time at the gym, maybe catching up on a few shows. My mind was wrapped up in the routine, in the normal. I paid my bill, stepped outside, and breathed in the crisp autumn air. The sun had set, leaving the sky in a wash of deep purples and blues. I was just thinking about how peaceful the night was when I heard it. The screech of tires, the deafening blare of a horn, a force like nothing I had ever felt before. Pain, sharp, burning, all-consuming, and then nothing. Not darkness, not light, just nothingness. A void, a terrifying, endless void. I wasn't floating. I wasn't falling. I simply wasn't. The concept of time meant nothing. My thoughts weren't thoughts anymore. They were fragments, disconnected and drifting, like whispers in the wind, until I wasn't alone anymore. That's when I saw them. Eyes, piercing, watching me from the abyss. Not human, not animal, and yet somehow both. They bore into me, unraveling every part of who I was. And then a whisper, a voice, neither kind nor cruel, but filled with something I couldn't name. Do you truly understand what you've done? I tried to speak, but I had no voice. I tried to move, but I had no body. I was only awareness, suspended in the in-between, caught in something far beyond human comprehension. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the void was gone. I was falling, not like tripping over your own feet, not even like plummeting off a cliff. This was different. This was falling without an end. No ground, no sky, no destination, just me, plunging into the unknown. I wanted to scream, but there was no air. My very soul felt like it was being stretched, pulled apart piece by piece. I had no control, no anchor, no understanding of where I was or what was happening, until a force grabbed me. It wasn't a hand. It wasn't wind. It was more like a presence, a power beyond anything I had ever known. It yanked me from the abyss and hurled me into something even stranger. Light, blinding at first, but then warm. It surrounded me, filled me, wrapped around me like something alive. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't afraid anymore. But I should have been. because what I saw next changed everything. Special message for you. Before we continue, I want to say something important. Many people commented on our last video, leaving their name and city. And today, we're sending out a special message to some of you. If you want to hear your name in our next video, comment below with your name and city. Let us know where you're watching from. Thousands of people will see it, and your name might be called out in the next video. So don't miss your chance. Also, if you're new here, welcome to our community. Make sure to subscribe and hit the like button to support this message. We're here to share incredible stories that touch hearts and change lives. Let's continue this journey together. The moment I stopped falling, I knew something was different. I wasn't in the void anymore. I was somewhere else. The blinding light that had swallowed me whole now softened into something warm, something alive. It wasn't just brightness. It was being. It pulsed around me, through me, like a presence that wasn't just near me but part of me. For the first time since the accident, I felt something that resembled peace. But that peace was fragile, because something else was here too. I wasn't alone. I could feel it before I saw it. A power, no, a force, so overwhelming that I could barely comprehend it. It wasn't just the presence of something divine. It was the source of everything. And then I knew. I didn't need to see him to recognize who he was. Jesus. Not a painting, not a statue, not the figure I had imagined as a child in Sunday school. This was different. This was real. His presence alone made every part of me tremble. Not out of fear, but out of something deeper, something more profound. It was like standing in the center of a hurricane, except instead of wind, it was love. Powerful, consuming, undeniable. I fell to my knees, except I wasn't sure I even had knees anymore. Everything about me felt different, like I wasn't made of flesh and bone, but something else entirely. Something lighter, something more raw, more exposed. And then he spoke, not with words, not with sound, but with knowing. His voice wasn't something I heard. It was something I felt, a truth so deep, so absolute, that it became part of me the moment he spoke it. You are not here by accident. I wanted to cry. I wanted to speak. I wanted to ask a million questions. But before I could, he lifted his hand. And suddenly, I saw everything. My life, my choices, my beliefs, every moment I had ever lived, laid out before me in a way that made perfect sense. And one thing stood out above all the rest. Animals. It started with small things. I saw myself as a child, playing with a stray dog in my backyard, my heart full of love, but my mind whispering, it's just an animal. I saw myself as a teenager, shrugging off my best friend's grief after she lost her childhood pet. I had told her, it's not like losing a person. I saw myself as an adult, dismissing the idea that animals had any spiritual significance, that they were more than just temporary companions, that they could be anything other than fleeting parts of our world. And then I saw something that shook me to my core. I saw them, not just the pets I had known, not just the animals I had encountered, but all of them, countless souls, watching, waiting, knowing something I had never understood. Jesus turned to me, his gaze piercing through every layer of my soul. And then he spoke again. Did you think I created them without purpose? A wave of something indescribable crashed over me. The weight of that question sank deep into my being. Had I really gone my entire life thinking they were nothing more than background figures in our story? Had I truly believed that they were disposable, temporary, insignificant? And then, just as the realization took hold, everything shifted again. The light around me trembled, as if the very fabric of reality was unraveling. And before I could react, I was somewhere new. I barely had time to process what was happening before the world around me shifted. The light, warm, alive, pulsing with divine energy, faded, not into darkness, but into something else entirely, something vast, I stood, if you could call it standing, at the edge of an endless expanse. Not like any place on earth. There was no sun, yet light was everywhere. The air hummed, thick with something I couldn't name, something ancient. And then I saw it, a field. Not just any field. This place was alive. The grass shimmered, not green, not gold, but something beyond color, something that pulsed as if it were breathing. In the distance, trees stood like silent sentinels, their branches stretching toward the sky. But it wasn't just scenery. It was more than that. This place knew me. I could feel it in my bones, if I still had bones. A deep, overwhelming sense that I had stepped into something beyond human comprehension. And then I saw them. At first, my mind refused to believe it. Animals, everywhere, but not just the ones I recognized. There were creatures of every kind, some familiar, some unlike anything I had ever seen. Some glowed with an unearthly light. Others moved with a grace that defied gravity. And yet, they weren't wild. They weren't mindless. They were aware, watching me, knowing me. And then I saw him. A figure broke through the sea of creatures, walking toward me. A dog. His fur was the same golden brown I remembered. His ears perked up the way they always had. His tail motionless, as if he were waiting for something. I knew him. Max, my childhood dog. A lump formed in my throat. Not that I even knew if I still had a throat. He looked at me, but it wasn't the same. His eyes, those deep brown eyes, held something I had never seen before. Something deeper. I fell to my knees, reaching for him. But before I could touch him, a voice rumbled through the very fabric of existence. Not Jesus. Something else. Something that made the very air tremble. Did you think I would create them without purpose? The field pulsed with the weight of those words. Everything stopped. The air, the light, the very space around me held its breath. And in that moment I knew, I felt the truth. I had been wrong. So wrong. And before I could even begin to process it, everything shifted again. The moment the voice spoke, everything around me shifted again. I wasn't in the field anymore. The shimmering grass, the silent trees, the animals, they were gone. Instead, I found myself somewhere else. A place so vast, so overwhelming, that my mind could barely comprehend it. The sky, if you could call it that, was endless. A horizon that stretched forever, but not in any direction I could define. It wasn't just a place. It was existence itself. And in the center of it he stood, Jesus. But this time, he wasn't just a presence. He was there, before me, real in a way that nothing else had ever been. His eyes, piercing yet filled with love, held something beyond time, beyond understanding. Looking into them was like looking into the very fabric of eternity. And in that moment, I knew, this wasn't just about me. This wasn't just about my life. This was about something far greater. Jesus raised his hand, and suddenly I saw. Not with my eyes, not with my mind. I saw with my soul. And what he showed me shattered everything I thought I knew about the afterlife. A vision unfolded before me. I saw people, thousands, millions of them, standing in a place that was neither heaven nor hell. Some looked lost, their eyes searching for something they couldn't find. Others knelt, their hands outstretched, but not in prayer, in regret. And beside them were animals, not trapped, not suffering, but waiting, watching, understanding. I stepped forward, drawn to one of them, a woman. Her face was lined with sorrow, her hands trembling as she reached for something that wasn't there anymore. And then I saw it, a small dog at her feet, a tiny, frail thing, its fur matted, its eyes filled with a quiet knowing. It didn't move, it just stayed, beside her, waiting. And suddenly, I knew what I was seeing. These people, they weren't being punished in the way I had always imagined punishment to be. There was no fire, no chains. Their torment was understanding. Understanding what they had ignored, what they had dismissed, what they had refused to believe while they were alive. The weight of their choices, their indifference, their neglect, was now the only thing they could feel. And beside them, their animals, not accusing, not condemning, just waiting, because the truth had always been there. They just hadn't seen it. Until now, the vision ended. I gasped, staggering backward, my soul trembling from what I had just witnessed. And then Jesus spoke again. Now you understand. A special message for you. Before we continue, I want to do something special. In our last video, we sent out personal shout-outs to some of our viewers who commented their name and city. And today, we're doing it again. If you want to hear your name in our next video, leave a comment below with your name and the city you're watching from. We love celebrating our community, and you never know, you might be featured in our next video for thousands of people to see. Also, if this message is touching your heart, take a second to hit the like button. It helps us reach more people who need to hear this powerful truth. Now, let's continue the story. The weight of Jesus' words settled deep into my soul. I understood now, not just what I had seen, not just what I had believed. I understood why I was here. This wasn't just a revelation. This wasn't just a lesson. This was a calling. Jesus lifted his hand again, and suddenly, the vision shifted. Now, I saw something else. Something terrifying. The world. Not heaven. Not hell. The world we lived in. I saw cities, streets, homes. People going about their lives, just as I had. They were busy, rushing, consumed by their own struggles, their own ambitions. Most of them didn't see what I had seen, didn't know what I now knew. And then, my eyes were drawn to something more. I saw suffering, not just human suffering. I saw them, the ones no one noticed, the abandoned, the neglected, the mistreated, animals, waiting in shelters, chained in backyards, left on the side of the road, crying for love, for kindness, for acknowledgement. I felt their pain, their confusion, their longing, and I realized I had been blind, not because I had been cruel, not because I had harmed them, but because I had not cared enough to see. I had walked past. I had shrugged it off. I had believed the lie that they were just temporary. But Jesus had shown me the truth. They were not just creatures of this world. They were souls. They had a purpose, and the way we treated them mattered. Suddenly, I felt something shift inside me. This was not just about animals. It was about everything, about how we see the world, about how we choose to live, about how we love, or how we fail to. And then Jesus looked at me. His eyes held something powerful, something that burned through every part of me. Now you must decide. The word struck deep. I knew what he meant. It wasn't enough to know the truth. It wasn't enough to understand. I had to do something with it. And as that realization took hold, the world around me began to fade. The light, the vision, the presence, everything was pulling away. And then I was falling again, falling. But this time, it wasn't like before. I wasn't tumbling into the abyss. I wasn't lost in a void of nothingness. This fall had purpose. I could feel something pulling me back, tethering me to a reality that I had left behind. And then, pain, a crushing, suffocating weight pressed down on my chest. My lungs burned. My body felt like it was being squeezed from the inside out. Sound rushed back in, a distant beeping, voices, footsteps, and then a gasp. My own. I was back. I opened my eyes. The world around me was blurry, distorted by the haze of fluorescent lights and sterile walls. The smell of antiseptic filled my nostrils. Machines hummed beside me, their wires connected to my arms. A hospital. I was alive. I had returned, but I wasn't the same. How could I be? I had seen, I had heard, I had stood before Jesus. I had been given a mission. I tried to move, but every part of me ached. My limbs felt heavy, my body sluggish, like I was wearing a suit of iron. But none of it mattered. Not the pain, not the confusion, not the lingering fog of medication. Because one thing burned in my soul with absolute clarity. I couldn't stay silent. I had to tell people what I had seen. I had to wake them up. I had to let them know that eternity is real, that our choices matter, and that the way we treat the world, including its creatures, is a reflection of our hearts. Because one day, we will all stand before the one who created it all, and we will have to answer for what we did. I closed my eyes for a moment, whispering a prayer, not just for myself, for everyone who was still blind, for everyone who hadn't seen, for everyone who still believed that this life was just about them. And as I lay there breathing, feeling my heart beat once more, I made a vow. I would never be the same again. Join our community. If you made it this far, I just want to take a moment to say thank you. We don't make any money from this. We do it because we love sharing stories that matter, stories that change lives. If this story touched your heart, the best way you can help is by subscribing and hitting the like button. It's completely free for you, but it means everything to us. And most importantly, it helps us reach more people who need to hear this message. So if you want to support what we're doing, if you want to be part of something bigger, hit subscribe and join our community. Days passed. The hospital walls felt smaller with each hour. The steady beeping of the monitors a constant reminder that I was still here, alive. But I wasn't the same man who had walked into that diner just days ago. I had seen something beyond this world. I had stood in the presence of Jesus Christ. I had been given a message. Now I had to decide, what would I do with it? I spent hours replaying it all in my mind. The fall into darkness, the eyes in the abyss, the voice that had whispered, "Do you understand what you've done?" I did now. I remembered the field, the place where animals were not just animals, but souls created with purpose. I remembered the waiting, the sorrow of those who had ignored the truth until it was too late. And I remembered his voice, powerful yet gentle, calling me to see beyond myself. The truth was clear. This life is not just about us. Everything we do, how we treat others, how we love, how we care, it all matters. One day, we will all stand before God. And in that moment, there will be no excuses, no distractions, just the truth. A truth we can either accept now or face when it's too late. I looked out the window. The sun was setting, washing the sky in shades of gold and crimson. The world outside continued, unaware of the revelation burning inside me. But I couldn't keep this to myself. I wouldn't. If you're watching this right now, I want you to hear me. You have a choice. You can walk away. Pretend this was just another story, another voice in the sea of noise. Or you can open your heart, because eternity is real. Heaven is real. Hell is real. And the time we have here, it's shorter than we think. This isn't just about animals. This is about everything. About your soul. About where you will stand when this life ends. Jesus is calling you. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Now. If you've ever felt his presence, if you've ever longed for something more, this is your moment. Choose him. Choose truth. Choose life. And one day, when your time comes, you won't face the abyss. You'll see the light. You'll hear his voice. And you'll know you are home. Don't stop here. What I saw changed my life forever. But there's something even more powerful that I need to show you next. Click on the next video that's appearing on your screen right now. It will open your eyes in a way you never imagined. You don't want to miss this. Also, before you go, if this message touched your heart, hit the like button and comment amen below. It may seem small, but trust me, this is just the beginning of something much bigger in your life. Stay blessed, and I'll see you in the next video.